All right, let's go now to the Ad Hoc Committee that is probing allegations of criminal infiltration in the justice system, which has just wrapped up, and look at today's testimony and just how critical has it been, particularly for the work of the committee. Bulelani, Phillip, our colleague, is on standby to bring us the very latest. Bulelani, very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. At some point, a witness breaking down, crying about abuse and all of that. Let's talk about what was happening there and who else appeared today.
Well, good evening to you, Bongiwe, and to the viewers at home. Of course, you'll recall that the witness in question that you're referring to was a witness that was set to actually give testimony yesterday, but because there were some concerns around the issues of national importance and national security, the committee felt that they needed to take a cautious approach in terms of calling that witness. You'll recall that the witness is an official of the State Security Agency, so there was questions of whether maybe some of the testimony or evidence that it will put before the committee may include classified information. So the committee went back to try and ascertain actually what was the nature of the testimony, and in the process they received a letter from the chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, Sylvia Lucas, who had actually received also a letter from the Acting Director General of the State Security Agency, who says that in terms of the law, any official from the State Security Agency needs to first get a approval via an application that they must launch before they can give any testimony in a public forum like this Ad Hoc Committee. So the committee in the end has resolved that it will advise that witness to actually make an application to the SSA for them to be able to give testimony before the committee. Of course, in that letter of the SSA, it does indicate that the Director General has the prerogative to actually indicate what kind of evidence can the witness make, and therefore classified information would not be approved to be given before the committee. Now, earlier also in the day, we saw a group of 3 policemen who are attached to the Forensic Science Laboratory who actually also took the stand today, and in the main, their concern was that they had lodged a complaint with the police generals as far back as 2012 around what they saw was a growing trend of when the drugs are seized in various areas in Gauteng, when they make their way to the Forensic Science Laboratory, they would then be stolen internally by some of the staff. And in fact, what they're saying is that they had actually got hold of video footage of those kinds of crimes happening. And when they handed over these video footage to the police generals, they found that that evidence was destroyed. Of course, they've also indicated that they raised these concerns with at least 3 former police ministers, including Fikile Mbalula, Nkosinathi Nhleko, and General Bheki Cele, as well as the National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masemula. And they are saying that up to date, they have not received any responses from those who are in charge of the police. So they are appealing to the Ad Hoc Committee to actually intervene, because from what we see on television sometimes about a fanfare of a seizure of drugs in places like OR Tambo International Airport, they are saying that there were actually a syndicate that is actually making sure that those drugs are actually taken or stolen and make their way back into the streets. Bongiwe.
And it's quite concerning, especially when you listen to some of the testimony that we would have heard, as far as this is concerned. But Bulelani, there's still a lot of outstanding work, right, as far as this committee is concerned. You think about the fact that we still have the former acting National Police Commissioner, Khumbudzo Phahlane, who still needs to come back. You still have other witnesses, your Brown Mokhotsis, your Paul O'Sullivan. What's next?
Well, Bongiwe, the committee is racing against time to actually ensure that all those critical witnesses that it wants to call before them are actually heard before the deadline of the 20th of February. Whether they will meet that deadline, for me, it's neither here or there for now. But of course, the committee had anticipated that it wanted to actually finish oral evidence by the end of this week, but I doubt that will happen. So it will have to actually crunch in the remaining witnesses that it wants to call, as well as also take written submissions from people like President Cyril Ramaphosa. Whether all of those submissions and oral evidence will be heard before the 20th of February, it's something that remains to be seen. Of course, the committee did acknowledge earlier that the issue of, issuing issues like a subpoena for Mr. Paul O'Sullivan as well as Brown Mokhotsi is something that takes a long time. Whether those will be approved and executed before the 20th of February, that again is something that remains to be seen. Bongiwe.
And yeah, quite the big question, because when you listen to a lot of their meetings, they even speak about the fact that one witness comes and mentions many more, and then others want to now add on the witness list, which that in and itself further complicates the picture. So let's see if they'll finish on time, or are we in store for another extension. Appreciate your time as always, my colleague there, Bulelani Phillip, who has been watching that ad hoc committee for us live there.